fantastic, fantastic feeling, fantastic control. Makes you want to drive on and on. Great, 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 great. For someone who has been playing with a belt-driven wheelbase for the last few years and is now using a direct drive wheel for the first time, this is uncharted territory. And although I thought I knew what to expect, after about 15 hours with my CSL DD, I'm still somewhat surprised and, yes, excited by what I've been able to experience so far. In this video, I share my impressions and current favorite settings for the 4 games that I think I know quite well and play actually. These are AC, ACC, AMS2 and RaceRoom. To make it comparable and even more understandable, I use the same car track combo in each game, namely the Porsche 911 GT3 at Brands Hatch. So let's see what the FFB meter says in Assetto Corsa as we go through turn 1, which is the benchmark for FFB. Yeah, look at that, pretty close to the limit, to the actual limit. In game I am at 60% gain. So I am pretty close to using all the torque available at the moment without clipping. Okay, I did not do anything about the setup of the car, so it's a bit twitchy under braking. Ah, there you see it, a little over the limit. But if this is just here and there, and not in every corner, I'd say that's a pretty neat setting. So let's see, that's the benchmark here, come on. Into the compression now, oops, through it. And that's cool. So I think 60 in-game for this car on this track seems pretty optimal. I like it. And of course the overall benefit of a direct drive wheel is literally that the forces are conveyed or transmitted more direct. Yeah, I also like the resistance when cornering fast corners.
Okay on fuel, 2 to go. Keep it together, we'll be on the podium.
Yeah, like here. Yeah, a pull on the wheel. That's a very nice simulation of G-forces. And overall, I don't need any further in-game effects like the road effect, the curb effect, the sliding effect. I have a constant vibration here in the wheelbase, which for me is absolutely enough at the moment. Yeah, going over bumps, going off track, also feels convincing and relatable. So here we are with my current settings on the CSL DD for Assetto Corsa. As a principle, I followed the recommended settings, which you can see on the right side. I prefer to start from a pretty pure basis and then work my way slightly up. Of course, also testing the extremes, but I'd like a pure feeling and, well, not a muffled and messed up setting. I always go for 100% force feedback overall strength and force feedback intensity and force feedback strength on the wheelbase, because I want the wheelbase to be able to reach its peak all the time and to use all that there is in the spectrum from 0 to 100. And then I use the game to dial in the force feedback on a per car basis. most of the other settings and parameters are down to 0. At the moment, I don't use any, let's say, secondary effects, no curb, no road, no slip, no ABS effect. Have your wheelbase do the main work and be careful with everything else that you dial in. So now in ACC, let's see how it feels here. Well, with this setting, it's 75 gain in-game. It doesn't feel as heavy and straightforward or direct as in Assetto Corsa. To me, the force feedback overall is softer. That feels much better. So I needed that first lap to get the tires up to temperature. Still here when going over the curb, losing traction and the car gets loose in the rear. Okay, but the overall feeling is improving. It's of course most relevant in those faster bends. Yeah. How the forces are pulling on the wheel and the hand. This is where we feel connected, where I feel connected.
That's a new fastest lap for Marciello, 125.70.
Let's see what I can do.
Last lap.
So let's see now. It's not peaking. So there would still be some room for even higher gain, which is good to know. At the end of the day, it's a gain dependent on the car. And your personal preference, if you go for 75 as a middle ground value, or higher or lower. The same principle applies for ACC. Starting with Fanatec's recommendations, I further tweak the settings on my CSL DD to get the best out of it. The only notable difference here is the sensitivity value of 720 instead of 1080. 720 serves as a sort of middle ground. This is a recommendation of Ermin Hamidovic, which I find quite useful, because thus cars with lower as well as higher steering angles can be driven properly, because this is sort of a middle or average value. In the end, of course, the correct driving angle and the best FFB gain should or could then again be set for each car individually. Getting already overtaken by some of the AI drivers. First time through the compression, and I would like you to take a look at the FFB meter, which is that horizontal gray bar you see in the lower left corner, which is called unnamed.
That side's clear.
So how does the game interact with the CSL DD? Does AMS2 feel better as with
You're right.
my CSL Elite? The answer is yes, of course, because also here the benefits and advantages of the direct drive come into play. The bounciness and a bit the skiddiness of AMS2 is mitigated by the wheel,
Clear on the right.
in the way that I
Car right.
feel more of the car, even feel more connected, and can anticipate the car's behavior a little earlier. That's of course what you want.
Car right.
a specialty of AMS2, of course, is that you can further set the gain for every car individually. Meaning we have two values, one for the overall gain in the control settings, and then when going into the actual car setup, we have another value which gives us another option. Whoops, yeah, that's too much, but okay, I can catch it. No, I can't. Ooh.
Outside of track limits there.
And so the combination of these two values helps us to further get the perfect setting for each car. Also here I like a pure and simple approach. So the overall setting, gain setting, in AMS2 is 70 or 75. And speaking of the Porsche GT3, as I am not clipping at the moment, I could still go higher. So yeah, also AMS2 and the CSL DD are a nice pair. And now, as I finish the race, let's take a look at my wheelbase settings and see if there are any differences to those other games. In Automobilista 2, it is almost the same as in AC and ACC. The only real difference is that as a default value, I set the maximum steering angle to auto. Everything else is again set to maximum, with the exception of natural damper, which I am still playing around with. I mean, it sounds reasonable not to have 100% always on, because that, well, again, fatigues you, and it's just too much of steering resistance. And on the other hand, going too low can also be unfortunate, since we can expect unwanted oscillations. So a value between 10 and 50%, depending on your preferences, seems reasonable. Again, what I like is to keep most of the settings fixed and play only around with one or two settings, and if I do, not at the same time. RaceRoom, Porsche GT3, Brands Hatch. See in the upper left, you can see my force feedback meter. Fantastic, fantastic feeling, fantastic control. It's like compression, and here you can see it's just peeking out. What's perfect, really perfect. T1 at Brands Hatch is the most demanding corner on that circuit. And if it's slightly clipping there, I think the force feedback, how I set it for this game and this car, are top notch. Yeah, it feels great. Feels great, so controllable. Makes you want to drive on and on in RaceRoom. Great, 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 great. Let's go a bit more aggressive. Yeah, it feels great. Wow. Okay, making up some places on the last lap. Yeah, and then going over the line in P12. Wow, this is cool. Great feeling. RaceRoom may look the same at first glance, but RaceRoom is something a bit more special or complex. What I mean is, apart from the basic values, that the new force feedback implementation offers us some more parameters to further tweak and dial in our own force feedback behavior. Of course, force feedback on, I've got force feedback inverted. These are the basic values. I also find it pretty handy to bind some keys to the force feedback, of course, and the FFB meter is of course the clipping checker. And then let's go on to physics-based values or parameters. FFB strength is at 100 at the moment, and this would be the value that I would change on a per car basis. The FFB linearity, as it says, reduces the dynamic range of the forces. Well, take a look what the slider does. And this of course correlates with this slider here. So by reducing the overall strength, I can decide to lower the overall output. With the linearity, I can further adjust how the forces are delivered. Well, at the moment, I go with 175. I leave minimum force off, and maximum force, of course, is at 100, because if I go down, I can just cap the overall output to, I don't know, 90%, 50%, and so on, reducing the overall torque from 8 point whatever down to whatever. So this is a no-brainer for me. It's always 100. The overall, or let's say the FFB strength is the car-based value for me, and the linearity is how the strength develops. I followed some recommendations saying keep this between 70 or 80, which is what I did, but to be honest, I would have to play around with this value. I also don't know if the effect is that great. This is the key value for me in RaceRoom to play around with. The CSL DD is for me the entry into the world of direct drive. The 500 euros for the base and the boost kit are well spent, because for about 150 more compared to the CSL Elite, I have effectively almost twice as much torque, plus the benefits of the more direct driving behavior, which are especially noticeable when you make the base work a little harder. 8 Newton meters are also completely sufficient for me at the moment. Indeed, I enjoy the fact that I do not have to push the base to its limits all the time in order to enjoy driving to the fullest. Maybe the CSL DD won't make me faster at hot lapping, but already I can confirm that I drive more consistently and with more confidence in myself and the car. Time will tell which game car track combinations work, how well, and what other advantages and disadvantages the CSL DD has. For now, I am happy with the purchase, and I can recommend the CSL DD with the boost kit to anyone who hasn't had a direct drive wheel before. The difference to the CSL Elite is really striking.